guys, this is Carrie with Fullerton Professional Organizing, and today I'm talking about a Bible study that I am doing called Game Changers. And to be honest, it's been a whole year. I've already read the whole Bible study, and I've already done it with some ladies, and I've started it over for new ladies in the Bible study, and I have struggled to know how to do this on a podcast. So I'm just gonna wing it and hope that I'm doing it the way it will come across to you in a great way to listen and receive what is being said. And so instead of just postponing it, I'm just going to go right for it. And I'm sure I'll learn as I go how to make improvements, how to do it better. But here we go. Now, the first session in this Bible study talks about how you are known in heaven. There is incredible days for us, and this is a message that was given by a man called Graham Cooke, and so it's not done as a typical Bible study. It's more of a teaching that, so that's why I struggled with how to do it on here. So I'm just going to read and then input my thoughts and what I get out of it, and hopefully it will bless you. These are incredible days for us. It takes a long time to prepare a people. You cannot do it in a couple of years. All of us have been on a journey of preparation. Some of that journey involves suffering, betrayal, persecution, and hardship. Now, we've all been through various trials, right? Some of them were just trials that you go through in life, and some of them happen to be, things other people did to us, but some of them are just everyday trials, and some of them are losses from sickness and just we've all been through some things, and I'm no different. My husband and I have been through trauma. We lost our first baby when it was born, had many miscarriages before that, and it took us 6 years to have children, but we were married 8 years before we had children. But sometimes you have to be abased before you know how to abound. There is no substitute for that. You just have to go through it. We all have to go through places of brokenness where, honestly, once you quit whining, complaining, and moaning, and I've done a lot of that, which is the worship language of hell, and a lot of my whining finally made me realize that it's just Jesus. He's really the only one we can go to. No one else, human, really knows the brokenness and what we're going through. No one knows what that truly feels like. So Jesus is the only one we can go to, and I finally have realized that. Once you quit that stuff, you realize that there is only one thing you can do, and that is kneel down and kiss the hand that hurts. Sometimes you just have to bow down and kiss the sun. I think that many of us have bowed down a few times to kiss the sun. God sometimes purposely lets us experience little or lack because he wants to see what we will do with the little he gives us. There are two things that God is doing with us. One is he's teaching us how to trust him. And there's the key right there. I have learned that no matter what I've been through, that I have to trust him. I also learned when I lost Travis, that's his name, when I lost Travis, that yes, I was grieving, But God wasn't grieving because he now had my baby boy with him in heaven. And for him, that was a glorious thing. For me, it was sad and I was grieving. And God understood that. But God received him in heaven and the angels rejoiced. And I had to come to realize that. And I will tell you this story that made me realize that. There was a story I read about a man who his son died, and he prayed and prayed and prayed, and his son came back to life. Well, it was a long time. They never talked about that incident like I'm fixing to tell you. So eventually they talked about it, how he prayed and he came back to life. And the little boy said, "But Dad, I was in heaven." That blew me away. You know, they say mind blown. My mind was blown. I had been grieving for a very, very long time. And you know that different people grieve different ways and different lengths of time. But that really helped me realize that, yes, I am grieving and I am sad, but that child is in heaven and is having the time of his life. So, God sometimes purposely lets us experience little because he wants to see what we will do with it. There are two things that God is doing with us. One is he's teaching us how to trust him. It is really difficult to become Christ-like when everything is going our way, the right way, we think. You do not learn the beauty of it when things are going well because you are too busy enjoying it, and that is exactly the right thing to do. We should enjoy things when it's going right. But when it is not going well, when it is hard, that is when God finds out things about us. Do we trust him? That is where we learn to trust him, and when he learns to trust us. That is the second thing God is doing. He is bringing us to a place to where he can trust us and we can trust him. Because we can blame God for taking our son, or we can blame the true enemy who took our son. Because I really believe there is an enemy out there that hates God, and he will do anything to draw us away from God and to make us hate God and to make us blame God. And I believe that he will use our children to do that. We used to have a prayer in England. This is Graham Cooke. He's from England. I'm sure we still do, and we prayed it for years because it's a great prayer. The prayer is simply, Lord, would you trust us enough with a move of God? Would you trust us enough to give us a move of God? We are in that place right now where I believe the Lord is redefining the kingdom to us, and he is redefining who the church is in the context of that kingdom. As we are discovering that church and kingdom are all about, you cannot have these huge things like church and kingdom put in front of you without understanding something of the dream of God and the longing of God and the passion of God to see a people raised up in the earth who are going to be as passionate about him as he is about us. Now, he is passionate about us. He's our creator. He made us. I mean, he's passionate about his creation. You have to go back to Genesis to see the dream of God and how after thousands of years, that dream is still in his heart. That we would make a people in his own image. We are his image bearers who see like he sees, who think like he thinks, who speak and talk in exactly the same way that he does, who walk in the manner that he would walk, who would do the things that he does, and who, like Jesus, can become a visual aid in the earth. Scripture says that the Spirit of God wanders to and fro throughout the earth, looking for a people on whose behalf he can show himself strong. He is looking for kings and priests and warriors and champions, and he is looking for them amongst the whosoever people who have been deemed to be ordinary. Just us ordinary, everyday people who have been rejected, people who are not deemed to be worthy, people unlooked or looked over. Sometimes he even uses the weird people, the ones that just have, no friends because they're just a little different than everybody else. It is out of that. Sorry, page turning. It is out of that people that he is fashioning men and women of real significance. Because if he can use someone that's a little odd, a little different, and even someone that maybe no one really understands, then we will know. It's kind of like one of my other Bible studies where I said some man said, well, God, if you're real, then make someone do a cartwheel right now. And there was someone in that parking lot at Walmart that God said, do a cartwheel. And that person said, are you crazy? Or am I crazy? And they did the cartwheel anyway. And it just signaled to that person that that there really was a God. And I have to admit, being a believer of Christ, would I have done that cartwheel? Would I have really thought that God was telling me to do a cartwheel? I don't know. I would have probably thought that's weird and moved on. I just don't know. But that's just how much God loves you, is if you ask him to show you that he is God and show you who he really is, he will. It may not be a cartwheel. We have to know what he is like, and we have to know what he is like for us. You cannot escape that. You have to know. You have to know, who is God for me? And you find it out on every single day, in good times and bad times. Who is God for me when things are going wrong? Who is God for me when favor is being displayed? Who is God for me when I am in need? Who is God for me when my passion for the people group he sent me to demands that I need more resources? Who is God for me on that day? How does God see me? How does he think about me? How does he talk to me? How does he like to be with me? We have to have answers for those questions, because that is what the Bible calls experience. That is what the Bible calls knowledge. Knowledge that leads you by experience into an encounter and into a place of trust. And everywhere in this glorious book, the Bible, and this Bible study, there is a revelation of who God is and what God is really, really like. When Jesus asked the question in Matthew 16:13, who do people say that I am? He was not fishing for a compliment. He was making a really critical point about identity and knowledge. The thing is, when you know who you are, then you know how you are supposed to live, both within yourself and towards the people around you, irrespective of their behavior towards you. I would go as far as to say that God's behavior towards you is utterly irrelevant. People's behavior towards you is irrelevant. What matters is who you are and how you show up. When those people around you know your true identity, then they have to act accordingly towards you. Now, this part makes me think about the story of Joseph. You know, Joseph had dreams from God saying, I will be ruler over you. And he told his brothers. Well, first of all, sometimes God tells us stuff and we shouldn't tell our brothers. But nevertheless, God had a plan. He told his brothers, and all of these things that Joseph would tell him about in his dreams really irritated his brothers. And some of you probably know the story, and if you don't, you can go and look it up in the Bible. But nevertheless, they sold him into slavery. Well, he had to have thought, wow, I had all these dreams that I was special, and now I'm a slave. Well, what happened is he wound up put in prison also. And again, he could have said, oh my goodness. But you know, he knew that he had those dreams, and he knew those dreams were from God. And he went through many, many trials and tribulations and trauma and so the difference between him and maybe you and I is he knew that those dreams are from God, so he knew those dreams were going to come true. So he could have whined and complained and had a pity party about all the things that he went through, but he did become a ruler over. Now, he was under Pharaoh, but he did become ruler over his family. But guess what? It wasn't to rule over them, and it wasn't to mistreat them, and it wasn't to show his revenge for what they had done to him. All of those traumas and tribulations brought him to a place where he could protect his family down the road. So, Satan meant to destroy him, but God used it to save his family. And if you get a message from God about who you are, no matter how many trials and tribulations you go through, you will know that God will complete that work in you, and it gives you more peace and trust, and makes and shows you that God will move you through those trials and tribulations to the place that he desires for you. So that is what we call, what matters is who you are and how you show up. When these people around you know your true identity, then they have to act accordingly towards you. That is what we call fellowship. Fellowship is not just how we meet together around the Lord's table or in worship or prayer. Real fellowship is when you know the person standing next to you. You know who they are, you know their identity, and you live with them according to who they are, because they are living with you according to how they see you in Jesus. And that is the unity we are looking for. That is the oneness of heart and mind and soul and voice. You see the people around you as God sees them, and you relate to them as he would. I've also heard, if there are people around you that are not acting the way they should, you can also see them as how God desires to see them in the future, because we're all growing and we're all changing, and we're all, God is trying to bring us somewhere, and we can always respect them, maybe not as how they are acting now, but we can always respect them as humans that God created, and respect them as how God desires them to be in the future. So when Jesus asked the question, "Who do people say that I am?" he got back 4 distorted images. The disciples said, "Well, some people say you are John the Baptist," which is a little disturbing because he was dead. He had been beheaded because he had just been murdered a few months earlier. That is kind of freaky. Others said, "You are Elijah or Jeremiah or one of the prophets." Some people saw him as the carpenter's son, some as a rabbi or a teacher. He wanted the disciples to understand those were not his true identity. His true identity, because that revelation of him would shape their relationship with him. He wanted them to see his true identity. What you think you know about God is the most important thought you are ever going to have. What you think about God is everything, and you have to work it out. If you do not know that vital stuff about God, you are always going to struggle when the heat is on. It is what you know about God that keeps you, that makes you stand, that makes you get up, that makes you walk. Our true identity is made up of who we are on earth and how we are known in heaven. Now that sentence right there blew me away. I always knew who I was in Christ. I'm a daughter of the King. I love Jesus. But just like Joseph was known in heaven as being a protector of his family and ruler over his family so that he could save them, God knows us a certain way in heaven. And once we find out how we're seen in heaven, it will change the whole way that we live the rest of our life, trials and tribulation and all. I want to say this to you. Every single one of you has an identity that heaven knows and understands. You are known in heaven. When you receive a prophetic word, what's happening? God is saying, this is how we see you. This is how we view you. This is what we believe that you are about. All right, guys, I'm going to end this here, but I do want to tell you one thing. I went to a women's conference this weekend, and the 3 things that I heard is fire, God's glory, and honey. And those things were spoken over me. Do I know exactly what to do with those words and how to use them? I don't know, but I do know this. I got home Sunday, and Monday I had a Bible teaching that I recorded on this podcast, and now I've decided to do this Bible study. So God is directing me to do some things, and I don't know all of the details yet, but I will follow Christ and I will do as he says to do, and I will continue with this Bible study. And the next section is talking about inheritance scriptures. All right, guys, I will see you in the next podcast. Thank you for watching.